The quest for supremacy led two biker gangs to become rivals without limits on May 14th. 2022, a massive fight broke out between the two popular biker gangs, Hells Angels versus Pagans, what led to this sudden outbreak, who won the war of dominance on the 14th of May. 2022, a significant street fight erupted involving the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club and their long-standing rivals, the infamous Pagans. More than 30 bikers clashed in a brutal conflict. Both sides had members injured badly. While investigators initially assumed this brawl was an isolated event, it was in reality a minor clash within a much larger war for dominance, a war neither of the gangs was willing to give up. Since then, a trail of death, chaos, and devastation has followed, marking an ongoing colossal clash between these two titans, claiming numerous lives and persisting to the present day. Before digging down the reasons that led to this fight, let us be aware of what are these clubs. Who are Pagans? Established in 1959 in Prince George's County, Maryland, the Pagans Motorcycle Club was initially formed as a tight-knit brotherhood of just 13 members. By the late 1970s, the Pagans had become one of the largest outlaw motorcycle clubs in the United States, primarily operating in the northeastern region. During this period, they had alliances with various criminal organizations, including the Blood Street Gang, the Philadelphia Mob, and the Latin Kings. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, the Pagans' growth continued, fueled in part by their dominance in the Northeast methamphetamine trade. Their fortunes took a downturn in the early 2000s as law enforcement investigations in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New York resulted in the sentencing of over 70 Pagans, including the national president and several vice presidents, to lengthy prison terms on charges related to drug trafficking. In seizing this opportunity, the Hells Angels capitalized on the weakened state of the Pagans. What is the history of the Hells Angels? Who are the Hells Angels? The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club is a global outlaw motorcycle club whose members typically ride Harley-Davidson motorcycles. But riding your favorite bike doesn't make them nice people. These club members, often referred to by nicknames such as the Ha Red and White, is the world's largest outlaw motorcycle club with a membership exceeding 6,467 chapters spanning 59 countries. Otto Friedli, a World War II veteran, found the club after parting ways with the pissed-off Bastards Motorcycle Club due to a feud with a rival gang. An alternative theory suggests that the Hells Angels were established on November 15th, 1951 in San Bernardino by White, a member of the Redlands Road Runners. A couple of dramatic events took place after the overtaking of Philadelphia by the Hells Angels. These filmy events then led to the bigger clashes of the gang. The major beginning was the conversion of Thomas Woodman from Pagans to Hells Angels. Woodman Pagans to Hells Angels. The Hells Angels encountered Woodman, a member of the Pagans, and attempted to persuade him to abandon his allegiance to the Pagans and instead join the Hells Angels. This proposal directly contradicted the oath of allegiance Wood had sworn, which was Pagans forever, forever Pagans. However, Wood disregarded this commitment, agreeing to the Angels' terms. In 2002, along with several other Pagans, he became a member of the Angels West Philadelphia chapter. The Hellraiser Ball incident on February 23, 2022. Vanderbilt Hall in PL View, New York, played host to the inaugural Hellraiser Ball, a motorcycle convention organized by the Long Island chapter of the Hells Angels. The event featured motorcycle exhibitions, a tattoo contest, test live band performances, and appearances by Chuck Zito, a former Hells Angel turned actor, and founding member Sonny Barger. The organizers aimed for an elegant affair with a red carpet laid out for distinguished attendees, capturing the attention of an oblivious media unaware of the bikers' criminal affiliations, happily snapping photographs. With over 1,000 attendees, the event appeared to proceed smoothly until a little after 4:00 p.m. 10 van arrived at the same area, where just hour before tuxedo-clad angels had disembarked from limos and strolled down the red carpet. Before an adoring crowd, how cinematic. Inside the vans were more than 70 Pagans from across the East Coast ready to disrupt the Angels' festivities. The gunfire wounded 5 Pagans and resulted in 1 fatality. Waiting outside, the police arrested 73 bikers, and later 66 of them were found guilty of federal racketeering charges. This bold assault by the Pagans conveyed a message to the Angels that they weren't willing to back down, marking the beginning of an intensified battle for supremacy. The murder of Wood soon after the Pagans struck again, this time targeting their former brother Thomas Wood, who had betrayed them and risen through the ranks to become the acting president of the Philly chapter. of the Hells Angels while cruising along the I-76 expressway would meet an unfortunate fate when he was fatally shot by unidentified assailants. Officially, the murder remains an unsolved case, but law enforcement leans toward rooting the crime to the Pagans' violent end left a lingering mystery, particularly as it came close to triggering a full-blown biker conflict with the Pagans back in 2005. The tragic incident unfolded as when steering a 2000 GMC pickup truck traveled westbound on the Shellkill Expressway around 1:40 a.m. on January 14th. The assailants fired multiple shots at the truck, and the details regarding whether would retaliated with gunfire remain unclear according to the police investigation. Despite the passage of time, the unresolved nature of Wood's murder continues to cast a shadow over the circumstances surrounding his untimely demise. The Pagans' approach over the next few years. The Pagans directed their efforts towards recruitment, aiming to bolster their ranks and level the playing field with the significantly larger Hells Angels. Their preparations for the impending conflict were conducted privately, akin to a lion adopting a silent approach before closing in on its way. To achieve this objective, the Pagans, who had previously maintained strict racial criteria, relaxed their standards and actively recruited a substantial number of Hispanic street gang members. Over the next 2 decades, the Pagans experienced an explosive growth in membership. At one point, there was contemplation of expanding into the Hells Angels stronghold of Quebec, creating a second front in their ongoing conflict. This plan was ultimately abandoned due to the notorious reputation of Canadian bikers within the criminal underworld. Andrew Glick, a former president of a pagan chapter in New Jersey turned government informant, highlighted the severity of the Canadian biker scene in an interview with the media. He remarked, "A one center in Canada, I would say, is a little more dangerous than being a one-er in the U.S. New Jersey bikers are tough, but not nearly as violent as what I've seen and read about in Montreal." Roar, the new national president. In 2015, Roar assumed the role of the gang's new president, having previously served as the club's national sergeant at arms after being released from prison in 2012, where he had completed a 14-year sentence for conspiracy to commit murder. Roar returned to the streets with a determined resolve to solidify the Northeast as pagan territory. To achieve this objective, he initiated the Blue Wave Initiative, a large-scale recruitment campaign aimed at conquering the entire northeastern United States. The ultimate goal was to displace any rival groups perceived as encroaching on territory rightfully claimed by the Pagans. Roar was well aware that the Hells Angels would not passively relinquish their dominance, and the long-standing Cold War between these two formidable entities was destined to escalate into open conflict sooner or later. Attack on Jeffrey Shank. Tensions between the Angels and Pagans had reached a critical point, resulting in confrontations whenever their paths crossed. A notable incident occurred on April 24, 2018, when Jeffrey Shank, an associate of the Hells Angels, left the gang's newer clubhouse to refuel his motorcycle at a nearby gas station. In a surprise attack, 3 individuals armed with baseball bats quietly emerged from a truck and struck Shank forcefully in the back of the head. The assault persisted, resulting in Shank sustaining fractured ribs and a collapsed lung. Death of Francisco Rosado. Hells Angels opened up a new clubhouse in the Bronx, an area that had been dominated by the Pagans for decades. How heroic! But just weeks after the Angels had moved in, a large group of masked men riding motorcycles opened fire on the clubhouse with a storm of automatic rifle fire. The building was severely damaged, but somehow no one inside was injured. It is obvious who is to be blamed. In May 2020, Francisco Rosado, the president of the Pagans Bronx chapter, was walking outside the Bronx apartment building where he worked when out of nowhere 2 masked men exited a parked Jeep Grand Cherokee armed with pistols and opened fire, hitting Rosado in the head and chest, killing him instantly. The consequences of this incident were severe. These interconnected events served as the catalyst for a series of upheavals that evolved into a warlike conflict between the Hells Angels and the Pagans. In the aftermath, what is the gain? For whom is the gain?